You mentioned earlier on, and this is an interesting take, years ago when we talked about attack vectors, exposures, it came from nation states, it came from, script kiddies, it came from, just fun people trying to have some goofiness with hackers, and it came from insider threats. But now it's like the mafia, right? Like ransomware groups are financially motivated. So, how are these ransomware groups kind of growing, and what are they looking to bypass or neutralize, especially when it comes to backups?
Yeah, I love this question because, I mean, if you look, and I won't get the statistic exactly correct, but there's a cyber liability carrier called Coalition, and there's a gentleman there named Daniel Woods. I quote his research often, and again, I'm going to misquote the statistic, but just call it a 70-30 rule. He says of the things that generate claims in cyber liability, 70% are things like wire fraud, business email compromise. What makes the news is the other 30%, the ransomware attacks, the financially motivated threat actors who cause some form of destruction or some form of exfil, or it may be both, in many cases, both. It's that part we have to really zero in on because they generate extreme amounts of cost and extreme amounts of damage, up to even possibly putting a company out of business. And why is that? Why is that true? It's true because frankly, no organization has I shouldn't say no, most organizations have not really focused on cyber resiliency. Cyber resiliency means, will you have a recovery? Will it be fast enough to allow the organization to survive financially? And thirdly, are there things about your resistance controls that are going to exacerbate or aggravate the likelihood of a significantly destructive event? That's what it means to really focus on resiliency. What we see, however, is in breach, backups do not commonly survive. Matter of fact, in Coalition's own research, they say 58% of organizations who file claims for these things realize a significant partial or full failure of their recovery capabilities. What we know from our own stat, 84% of organizations we meet and breach do not have a single survivable copy of backups. And this is because it isn't a product problem. It is an orchestration problem. And what do we do in our industry? We buy products and tools, and we think that these things are magic wands that just make problems disappear. And the truth is, that ain't how it works in reality. You got to apply people, process, policy, and products to actually orchestrate solutions, and they have to be monitored and managed continuously for them to be effective. And I'll give you one more stat, and then I'll shut up to ask the answer to your one question. If you look at the resistance versus the resiliency recovery industry, you'll see that basically all the spend in cyber is largely on resistance. It's a $200 billion industry, whereas recovery, 20 billion. So I just say to you, we are misguided and misfocused. If we truly believe that it is a matter of when and not if that one of these events will happen to our orgs, then we would be spending our money differently.
I love it. I love that you highlighted the people in the process first before the technology component. I think people forget that. I think as you grow as a small business into medium, into mid-market, you just forget that you start by buying technology because that's all you can afford, but you've really skipped a lot of steps. I've met with the coalition folks before. They've actually been on the podcast, so thank you for bringing them up. I'm sure
Oh,
we'll be
they're
able to cross.
wonderful.
They're amazing.
Daniel is one
Yeah.
of my favorite. He's one of my favorite.
Yeah, they're a blast. They're so good. I also wanted to stay on kind of this resilience and immutable backup talk track. And the reason I say that is because I literally met yesterday with a board of directors and was talking to them. And this was what the president of the company said. He said to me, "We understand that a breach is going to happen. We got that. We're working on that. But we can have zero downtime. How do you solve that problem?" And I had a great answer, but I'd love to hear your answer.
I have bad news. There will be downtime, and it's all a factor of how much you invest and focus on resiliency as to how much downtime you will experience. There is no such thing as zero risk, and there's no such thing as zero downtime in one of these events. We call them massively destructive events or mass destruction events. If you have a mass destruction event, you will have downtime. I don't care what your RTO state or what your RPOs are, you're not ready. Organization, I have not met one, and I've spent almost my entire career assessing these things. I have not met one that is what I would say legitimately ready. And so I don't know what your response was. I would love to hear it. I think what he expects is impossible. And
I agree.
they would never be willing to spend the money to make that happen.
I made two minor jokes. The first one I said, well, there's a way for you to save all your data. It's to go back to tape drives and store them in a closet that nobody can get to. He didn't appreciate that. The tech guys in the room laughed. And I said, honestly, if you're not expecting downtime, if you haven't figured out a way to inform your customers that we're going to be down for amount of X time and trust us, we're working through it to protect you, you're missing the bigger problem. He did say there has to be a way. And I said, well, you could replicate all of your data, create 3 different businesses, and just, if one business falls, you try to open it up from another side. But even that has downtime to do it. And there's more cost than you can afford. And so I appreciate you sharing that. I think the wisdom is you have to be prepared. You have to understand, though, that the breach is going to cause the downtime. And if you're not ready for it, 4 hours becomes 4 days, 4 days becomes a month. And you just have to know what your process is going to look like. The technology is not going to always save you.
You know,